Hello and welcome to episode 85 of the Dash News podcast. I'm Mark Mason and I'm joined by my two fellow hosts, Joel Valenzuela. How's it going?
How's it going, guys?
Excellent. And this week we welcome back Brian, aka Mastermind. How's it going?
I'm kind of hungry for some reason.
You're feeling hungry? I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
So I can't believe we haven't had this guest on the podcast already because we talk all the time, but it's true, 85 episodes. So this is the debut for Pasta, who is a Dash Core developer, but also the co-founder of Dash Boost. Welcome to the podcast, Pasta.
Thanks, Mark. I'm really glad to be here. It's fun to be on. I'm really surprised we haven't done this before.
I know, because we talk all the time, and you're always about in the after parties in the podcast as well. So, but I think this is a great opportunity to not just talk about the core side, but also Dash Boost as well, because not everyone that watches this may be privy and know what Dash Boost is. So let's just start on that. So for people that don't know, they may be aware of the Dash treasury, but they may not be familiar with Dash Boost. So can you just summarize just quickly what Dash Boost is?
Okay, so the primary kind of structure of Dash Boost, it was set up and funded in January of last year, and it was set up to allow for smaller proposals, primarily because the main fee of 5 Dash is excessive if you're trying to, get 10 Dash back, or if you're trying to, fund a project that only needs 25 Dash or whatever. That fee is very high for smaller proposals. So we set up to have Dash Boost, which would allow either different community members to donate into Dash Boost and then kind of give back to the community, and we can fund out smaller proposals, or we would submit proposals to the treasury and then use those funds to give funds to smaller proposals. And of course, this is all done via voting. We don't really, I don't want to play God. I don't want to say these are the proposals that should pass. We want to be very objective about everything, and because of that, everything is voting based. And one of the nice benefits, I think, is unlike the general treasury where you need a masternode to vote, you only need 1 Dash to vote in Dash Boost. Every single Dash that you own is 1 vote. So if you have 1,000 Dash, you get 1,000 votes. If you have 1 Dash, you get 1 vote. A lot of people think that Dash Boost is for smaller voters, and it's a benefit that we can allow smaller voters, but that's not the incentive. And when you rely on smaller voters, it starts to allow a lot of kind of vulnerabilities and bad things to happen. And because of that, we really want to push more and more people to vote. And we really want to say, even if you're a masternode, if you have the time, I know some people are really busy, but if you have the time, please take a look at Dash Boost and vote, because it's so important.
So here's a question on that. So it seems like anyone who has a masternode can vote, and the DAO as well as Dash Boost, and they also conveniently have their Dash all parked in an address that they can then use to vote. From my understanding, if you got a whole bunch of Dash lying around that isn't enough for a node, and you use that to vote in Dash Boost, and then you kind of shuffle stuff around or pay for some stuff here or there, then you just can't vote with that unless you reintroduce it. Now, that being said, so does that mean it kind of almost discourages smaller minnows to be voting, or you see it a different way?
So really, you normally won't be registering your main spending wallet, I would say, with Dash Boost. I don't know how everyone has their setup, but I have my setup where, I have my cold storage on a Trezor, so those are that's kind of my savings account. I touch that when I need to. I try not to touch it. And then I have my normal spending wallet, right? I don't register my normal spending wallet on Dash Boost just because the funds move around so much, the addresses change, that kind of stuff. But my cold storage that hardly gets touched, I register that on Dash Boost and vote, so that because it doesn't move. That's kind of the main idea.
Interesting. Yeah. So I guess it's something that part of those long-term hodlers. Have you ever had anyone who has a fractional reserve masternode try to register some of that collateral? I mean, I'm sure it's a little bit ridiculous, but has anyone ever had the audacity to try? Been like, hey, I got like 4.5 Dash in crowd node. Can I hook that up?
We haven't had anyone kind of reach out to us about that. We're always looking for more integrations and stuff like that, and I think it would be a great partnership to have with CrowdNode. But to kind of allow for that kind of setup, because a lot of people that are holding for a longer period of time, you know, they are going to have it in a share service like that, so they can get some interest. So that would be great to work with them and set up an API of some kind to allow that integration, but we're not at that stage yet.
Yeah, because at the moment you need to
verify, possibilities are endless.
Because you have to send a signed message, so really people are going to be using their hardware wallets or their Qt wallets to sign up, correct?
Yeah, that's currently how it's set up. You have to give us a signed message from that address, basically.
So the monthly budget for Dash Boost is 100 Dash, and then the limit is 25 Dash per proposal, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Excellent. So I think one advantage of Dash Boost is with the main Dash treasury, it's a 5 Dash proposal fee. And the accessibility to Dash Boost is far greater. As Dash is a worldwide project, it needs to have accessibility for all nations. And it's been very popular in Africa. I see lots of proposals from Africa come through because a lot of proposals that are first starting out, to raise 5 Dash, even in a DAO market, is quite difficult. And where the cost of living is, you know, drastically a lot less in some countries, Dash Boost is actually a lot more suited, and even to submit a proposal is much easier on Dash Boost. So it actually has some distinct advantages, correct? And actually helps grow the ecosystem more.
Yeah, I think it is a great on-ramp for those, you know, kind of smaller, you know, entrepreneurs and people that want to start up their own idea, their business, whatever it might be, you know, everything from, you know, integrations to more merchants to just kind of having a couple of meetups, whatever it is. Dash Boost is a really great kind of on-ramp for that.
Interesting. So have you had, okay, so this sounds all great and it seems to be running smoothly so far. I know Joel's had a successful Dash Boost proposal recently, so that's all good and well. We can come to that in a minute. But have you had any problems or issues along the way? Because it's a refining process, right? So has it been plain sailing, or have you had any obstacles that you've had to overcome?
So there have been a couple of situations where people have gotten kind of upset with the results of the voting. Because I
always get upset when I lose.
Yeah, you know, everyone does. It's terrible. Primarily because, you know, say their proposal was passing for a long time throughout the cycle, and then kind of at the very end, you know, just someone with a lot of votes says, no, I don't like your proposal. And they get really kind of upset about that. And it, you know, it sucks. Like, it's terrible to go, oh, great, you know, and be all excited that your idea is going to pass and you're going to get these funds, and then it doesn't. But when it comes down to it, the Dash Boost cycle is like a marathon. You know, you can be winning the whole time. You can be in first place the entire time, and then in the last stretch, someone can overtake you. That's just how it works. And so we are implementing a couple of things to kind of stop people from voting at the very last second, because I think that's just a little, you know, it's not cool. It's, you know, you can vote at any time. If you want to vote late in the cycle, you still can. But there's no point to be waiting until there's 1 minute left and then voting. That's just, you know, it just seems bad. So we are going to be implementing a change where the final minute, whenever that is going to be random on that day. So, you know, it's going to end at some point on this day, but you don't know exactly when. That way people can't, you know, wait until, you know, there's 30 seconds left on the clock and then spam a bunch of votes, because it's just not cool. That's one of the things we're changing.
Yeah, it seems like the last minute spam thing is not as much of a problem in the Dash DAO treasury, because there's a much higher participation. And it seems like because there's not as much attention in the Dash Boost, people can say, hey, can you throw me a couple of votes? And then you get enough. Oh, I'm easily passing. And that's it. But if you knew you had a more uphill battle, you'd start lobbying for it more, and then you get a higher participation rate, and then it would be a little bit less weird. Is that kind of the way you see it?
Yeah, that is the main thing that we want to keep pushing for. Is the more voter participation we have, the better the system's going to be all around. That's something we really want to push through these next couple of cycles, is really get everyone that we can voting on there. Everyone that has the time to be able to just, take a look and see, I like this idea. I don't like this idea as much, put in those votes and just, participate in this community and help these people out.
Well, yeah. I was just going to ask you just to give a few examples of, because you shouldn't really be biased and have favorite proposals that have passed, but has there been any like notable proposals that you think would be of interest to people to show you how useful it is? And just before you answer that, I just want to say, before I had the idea for the question, Spencer, aka Kodaks behind Spark Payments, who's also been a guest on the podcast, is in the live chat, and he's saying that he's a walk-in success of our Dash Boost proposal. So that just goes to show how useful it is.
Yeah, so please exclude my proposal, since it's kind of a bias that I'm here in front of. Yeah. What you didn't include mine, so just by default exclude that.
Okay, well, I'm not going to listen to Joel. Joel's was actually one of my least favorite proposals. Just going to throw that out there.
God damn it. Are you the guy? Are you the whale that tried to sink me last minute?
All right. But Kodax's proposal was actually one of the ones I'm really proud about. He was in a situation where he was really financially tight, and he was still working full time basically, and he needed a little bit more to be able to take some time off work and really dedicate some time to, make Spark the final product, what it is now, one of the great POS systems in Dash. And he couldn't afford the 5 Dash fee. And I'm not even sure if he could afford the 1 Dash fee, but we made it work. He made it work, and he got into Dash Boost, and then his proposal was a resounding success. I think it passed its very top, and it got him, I think it was, I don't remember how much. It might have been 25 Dash. It might have been 14. For some reason, those numbers are sticking out in my head. He can probably correct me in the live chat.
I'll let you know. Yeah.
Yeah. And from there, it passed, and he got those funds when he was in a really tight position, and he was able to dedicate time to Spark, and he was able to create a whole new API for the price system in Spark. And it's been absolutely amazing. I'm really proud of his proposal for sure. That's one of the ones that I point to when anyone asks.
So I'd like to point out that he was working pretty hard on Spark on his own time, while just I'll do this, I'll do that. And then when there were some problems with some other processor, I went to him and said, dude, you gotta this is the one that works. You gotta do these things. He's like, yeah, it'll take some time. I'm like, how can you do it faster? Well, if I had more time, and I just said Dash Boost right now, go. It's like, yeah, but I was like, no, you're not gonna mouth out, do it. So I pushed him to go to Dash Boost, and it's done very well. And I'm glad that he took my advice, you little difficult person, you.
So what's the current status of Dash Boost right now? Are you okay for funding? Are you okay for a month or two? Or
okay, so we just got another 100 Dash on the last super block. So we have funds for this cycle. After this cycle is completed, we'll have at least 25 Dash left over, just because it wasn't used in the prior 2 cycles. After, we will be submitting a proposal at some point this month for additional funds going into the future for more cycles. We're going to be as lean as possible. We don't want, obviously the budget's really tight. We're not really going to expand at this point. We're going to keep the amounts asking at what it was last time. Obviously we want to expand. We want to make Dash Boost bigger. We want to allow more proposals in, but I don't think it's the right time to be kind of trying to force that. We just want to keep going and allow all of the other projects that need their funds to get it as well. But yeah, we will be submitting a proposal at some point this month, and hopefully that'll pass, and we'll be able to continue on Dash Boost and help more projects like Kodax's Spark, like my Dash wallet had a proposal in, like Dash Force's proposal, and all of the other great proposals. We've funded so many of them at this point, and I'm really proud of almost all of them.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're implementing that thing to stop it from last minute voting, because the last few cycles, yeah, there was a smaller whale with like 16 master nodes that was acting a bit maliciously and voting some of the stuff down, and that's not cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny that 16 Dash is a smaller whale, but it's still, I mean, still isn't that bad at all. And it still is kind of terrible that who is going to just come in and just try to sink a bunch of proposals.
Yeah. So, Pastor, before we move on to Dash Core and development talk, is there anything else regarding Dash Boost that you want to announce? Is there anything upcoming, or are you happy with our coverage so far?
We're always looking to improve and expand. I have an internal docket of technical improvements and other improvements that we're trying to start implementing. We're trying to start implement a very kind of simple replication of what Dashwatch does in a kind of reporting feature. You know, we have to make sure everything's as lean as possible. We don't want to add any extra overhead, but we also want to make sure that we're providing the community as much value as possible. So we're adding these new features. Hopefully in the nearby future, we'll have the ability to go back to the treasury and ask for a little bit more funds to really do a nice overhaul, and potentially integrating with services like Dash Nexus. So if you're a Masternode owner and you're registered on Nexus, you don't even have to register on Dash Boost. You can just log in with your Nexus stuff and you're good to go. Stuff like registering with CrowdNode, all of that kind of stuff, it's all on the docket, but there's only so much we can do right now, and we're really working on it and hoping that we can make all of that work and add more value is really what it comes to.
That sounds good.
So for those that are watching and those in the community as well, they may be familiar with Pastor in the community on Discord and your association with Dash Boost, but there may be some in the community that had no idea that you're involved in the Dash Core team and a developer for them. So I'd like to talk now how you first came into Dash, how you discovered it, and then how you actually eventually became a developer for Dash as well. So to help potentially inspire up-and-coming developers that are new to the community that perhaps might follow in your footsteps. And you're also known as Pastor on GitHub as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's pasta because the pasta username had already been taken, but you know, close enough.
So you're just like the old pasta, except with more pasta.
Yeah, just more pasta, make it even better, right?
Yeah. So what exactly is your role and for Core?
So I'm on the core dev team. So that means I work on the Dash Qt client, the base core node, stuff like that. So I work with people like Eugen and Codablock a lot, who are absolutely amazing. They're some of the brightest developers I've been able to deal with, and it's been absolutely amazing to deal with them. I started out in Dash quite a while ago, and initially I just got into the community, said hey, and got to know it, started to collect a little Dash here and there, and then I started up Dash Boost, obviously, and somewhere through that process, I really started getting into GitHub and trying to do different things here and there. I had already been a Java developer, just kind of, on my own time, but I had, and people don't know, the Dash Core is built in C++, so that was a little bit of a learning gap that I had to go through there, but I was able to start working on, just simple stuff here and there on Dash Core and add a little bit more feature, add something here, add something there, fix a couple of problems here and there. And I started being active enough that, internally they kind of started noticing me and going, hey, who's this guy? We haven't really seen him about too much. And at one point I was actually on the after party, and I was talking with one of the core team members.
The after party of legend.
And I was talking with them, and they recommended that I reach out to Bob and Nathan, the CTO and deputy CTO of Dash Core Group, and about getting a potential position. And I did that, and Bob and Nathan have been great. I report to Nathan directly, and we have calls quite often, you know, about what I've been able to do and etc. And that's been absolutely amazing working on that. So I sent off an email to them, got accepted, got, you know, walked into the team. And I've been able to start working on some really great stuff, all the way from, you know, just testing on testnet, doing all of that kind of stuff, to I've implemented recently, not too long ago, a change for proposal owners. If you remember, when you submit your proposal, normally, you know, it takes 6 confirmations for like the whole process and stuff like that. Now you can do it with instant send, and it's, you know, you'll only have to wait 1 confirmation before running like the submit command, I think it is. In Nexus,
which is a very minor change from the outsider perspective. But if for anyone who's actually submitted a proposal, it is kind of a pain in the butt that you're just like, all right, send, and then you have to like wait, or like while you're trying to get a proposal submitted, you'll have to like walk away and you come back like 15 minutes later, whatever. It is a big pain in the butt, especially when it's nerve-wracking. You're just kind of waiting for it to come through, and then you come back and, oh, my power died. Or what happened? Did it go through? Can I get? It's a deceptively major improvement.
Yeah. And that change was actually inspired by the team over at Dash Nexus. I've worked with them a bit. They've had some kind of ideas, and they've said, hey, can you make this little change to the setup, and it would make kind of their integration a lot easier. So I've done a couple of those things. And I've done a lot of work on private send, different stuff like that. Overall, it's been great. That's how I got into it.
That's what I really admire about you, Pastor, because that's why I think your story is so important to listen to, and it's at really the heart of the Dash community. You started off as a volunteer. You was looking at the code, reviewing it, looking for potential problems, getting to understand it on a volunteer basis. You wasn't looking for handouts. It was out of pure interest for your love of the project and seeing where you could help and what you can add to. And so that led to you eventually getting a job and being paid for it. But it's through the merit of hard work and your commitment to the project. And that's the way it should be. We're a community-based, decentralized project.
Can I read something about that?
But I mean, so this is why I think it's important. And I hope other potential developers listen to this may follow your footsteps and look at the GitHub, because each code needs to be reviewed right before it goes ahead. And, you know, things can be overlooked, and it's all about speeding things up. So it's all about what you can contribute yourself. If you can add value to the network, you have a seat at the table. But, you know, all of us, including in Dashforce, we all started on a voluntary basis and we worked our way up. You don't go from 0 to 100. And I'm so thankful to people like you, Pastor, that have come on, because you've added so much to the network already. I actually noticed yesterday in the Discord channel, you said that you was doing some testing with instant send. Do you want to talk about what you was doing there?
Yeah, so there was a remark about an instant send failing, basically. And I wanted to take a look at that and kind of, you know, just get a little bit of hard data so that I could really tell. And so I started up basically a little script that would send a bunch of instant sends, just to, you know, and see how, if any were failing, etc. And I've actually had that script running since the beginning of this podcast. And so what it's been doing is every 10 seconds on testnet, it's been sending an instant send transaction. And it's just been doing that over and over again. We're up above 200 instant send transactions so far. Not a single one of them have failed. So, you know, and there's just minor stuff like that, you know, kind of validating that everything's working correctly. And yeah, that came up because someone had kind of talked about it and said, maybe this is something to look into. So even just minor contributions like that is great.
And you don't have to be a member of Dash Core group developer to actually get paid. I think it's really important that we talk about Bug Crowd, who recently did an article on Dash, which we should probably plug. But for those that don't know, but we have a bug bounty program with Bugcrowd, which has a network of over 60,000 independent security experts that can look at the Dash code, and really they're incentivized to try and break it and find problems. And if they're able to do that, then they can be rewarded for that. So this is a really good program. And I think you were part of that as well at one point, Pastor, before joining. So people can make money out there by contributing and adding value, right?
Yeah. So when I was kind of first getting into the project and the code, I found a kind of minor, not strictly a vulnerability, but it was just something that needed to be changed, needed to be fixed. And I put that through Bugcrowd, and it was substantial enough that it got rewarded fairly nicely. And I was, that really got me going and really got me into it. I think the Bugcrowd initiative is really, really cool, and really allows a lot of developers to put some time in and like security analysis to look into it and make sure that our code is robust. Because when it comes down to it, you know, we're a kind of a financial institution in some ways. We're not an institution, but we have to look at the security of the platform from that perspective of, we are kind of holding people's funds. If we make a mistake, that can have drastic impacts on someone's funds, and we take the security of the platform is our utmost concern.
Yeah. I completely agree. So for developers out there, because I want as many developers to come, as Steve Ballmer once said for Windows, developers. So if
you said it more times than that.
If inspiring developers want to get involved in Dash, what's the best way? Is it GitHub? Is it Bugcrowd? How can I learn about it? You got the developer documentation. What's the best route to get involved?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. The developer documentation is a great setup. I think it's the Fez that works on that. Sorry if I got that wrong.
And Trophy, I think both of them work on the documentation in general.
Yeah, both of them do, and it is great. The documentation on that is so amazing. I know that helped me out so much when I was just getting into it, because the Dash code base is so big, it's so vast, that you're not going to know everything going into it initially. You know, I still don't know, anywhere close to everything about it. But as you continue, you learn more and more, and that is such a great tool to figure out, okay, what does this kind of represent? What does a DSTX mean? Well, what that, it wouldn't make sense now, but what that meant initially was a DocSend transaction. But now we don't use DocSend, we don't use that name. So if you just look at a DSTX, it doesn't make sense to you, but that's still what it's kind of, that's still like the networking name in the back end. So stuff like that, being able to get that kind of translation is amazing. It's so useful. And they put so much great work into that developer documentation. Really use it. It's so good if you want to work on the Dash code base. In addition, go on GitHub, even just, reviewing pull requests, go on a pull request and, see what it's doing, try and take some time to understand it. And then you can, leave a, once you start dealing with GitHub, read the developer notes. But after you read the developer notes, then okay, if I agree with this change, I can say like UTACK, which means untested, like acknowledgement. Like I agree with the change, but I haven't tested it. And different stuff like that. Even if you don't think you're a great developer, if just the more eyes that we get on it, the better. So I would definitely encourage people who want to start developing to take a look at the GitHub, really kind of take a look at those pull requests, take a look at issues, stuff like that. And of course, the developer documentation is a really great place to look.
What was the gist of the Bugcrowd article? I believe I saw the headline, but what was it about?
So, as I go on Twitter quickly to bring up Bugcrowd and check the link, it was a blog post from Bugcrowd, basically just letting the followers know about the Dash bounty, because on Bugcrowd, literally any network can put up a bounty on their hardware, software to be reviewed. And they just put up a blog post just to let people know about Dash and how successful that it's been, that, you know, that we are open source, and the people that are interested in blockchain and cryptocurrency to check this out. And what we're seeing is now, I believe, is that where we've had lots of developers in the past. I worked in IT before I got involved within Dashforce, and it was all Microsoft, you know, back then, Dynamics, all that sort of stuff, right? I was on the networking side. But now I think we're seeing people realize and recognize the value in blockchain. We're seeing it in curriculums at universities and even down into high schools and secondary schools now. So I think now that traditional developers and also up and coming developers are taking blockchain technology more seriously. And we're actually really unique. I think we're the only cryptocurrency actually on Bugcrowd. There's a lot of people, or sorry, a lot of projects that, you know, are scared to have their code reviewed, right? Because they don't want people to see it. Where we're kind of like open canvas, like we're like, hey, look, we want you to break. It's in our best interest. We want this to be as robust as possible. And I don't think we actually sing this loud enough. I think this is a great asset to Dash.
I think there's like a pretty big bounties. Wasn't it like 10,000 or even more? There's some pretty large.
Yes. So it ranges, right? There's a tiered range, correct, Pastor?
Yeah, it ranges depending on the kind of severity of the vulnerability. I believe the maximum at this point in time for a single vulnerability is $1,000. But, you know, even still, like, you know, okay, it took a week to find a vulnerability and you get $1,000 for it. That seems like a pretty good deal to me. Or it took you a couple of days, you know, whatever. It really is a great program.
Excellent. And I'm just going to share that link in the live chat if you are interested. And if you did miss it before previously, when Pastor was talking about how to get involved if you're a developer, I also added the link to the developer documentation as well. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, no, the whole Bugcrowd thing is an interesting complement / contrast to the development of the Evolution platform, because Dash is completely open source, and the Evolution platform has pending release, right? Every little bit of it has been done sort of in private and then pushed out into public and open source. And it's kind of an interesting, just like the way Dash has like a hybrid system of using proof of work and proof of service. Dash has a bunch of little different adjustments. This is kind of an interesting thing. I wonder if projects will start to do similar kinds of things where they start to try to harden the open source elements, and then at the same time do like the delayed open source kind of approach. I wonder if this is going to be Dash as a trendsetter, or if it's going to be, yeah, let's not make that mistake again.
Well, you've got to have the funds to be able to support a project like this, right? I think that's why Dash is such a unique case study, and that's why they're actually using us as kind of like a client to say, like, look, this is kind of like the poster child. It's like, but we know other cryptocurrencies can't do that because a lot of them have to rely on third-party funding or donations, which often, as we see more often than not, major conflict of interest. But I think for the success of a project as well, as many eyes and ears and you have on the project, the better it's going to be in the long term. And we're seeing this, and I think ultimately this is why Dash will win out in the long run. We're not just seeing Bugcrowd, but we're seeing other external parties, just like ASU, Arizona State University, that have a great blockchain section, and we help fund them to kind of look at us and do research and stuff as well. So we've benefited from all kinds of research, from scaling to all sorts. So I think this is, once again, Dash's secret sauce, but it all comes back to the DAO and the treasury and being self-funded and self-governing.
Yeah, you know what? It reminds me a lot of something Craig Wright said. Bear with me real quick. First off, we have Bitcoin was created as it was, worked great. Core developers that were around that got handed the keys by Satoshi, etc., went along and kept on finding bugs and improvements and fixing little optimizations here and there and helping it along. And at some point, the vision got changed and no longer became the same peer-to-peer electronic cash. And there's a whole bunch of controversy and fights and struggles. And then, oh, who's paid by Blockstream and who isn't, and all that kind of muddled situation. And Craig Wright had an interesting idea, which, like everything Craig Wright says, is like all Craig Wright's good ideas, in my opinion, are like 2/3 of it's like, oh, that's an interesting perspective, with 1/3 you have no clue what you're talking about. So in this case, he said something along the lines of he wants Bitcoin SV to be basically unchanged. Like it's written in stone, and then the developers just never change it. Like literally stuck in the mud forever, so that most of the development occurs off the main protocol, as in people are building apps and things like that that leverage the chain, but don't actually, you're not actually, like, for example, advanced privacy, not going to build that into the protocol. You're going to do, oh, someone's going to have some special mixing wallet and other things like that. And so, I mean, I think that's a terrible idea to just, we're never going to change. We're never, like, what happens if you find out that proof of work as it stands is not secure and can be easily attacked? You're like, okay, well, you got to make some deep changes to evolve. But it's interesting because Dash has sort of an interesting like hybrid type thing of that, in that you got a core team that's funded, is sponsored by the network. The direction thereof is endorsed by the network. Still decentralized, but a unified vision going forward. And just, well, we're going to release things. We're going to develop some things out of the prying eyes of competitors and then dump them as completed projects into the realm of open source. But then everyone can build, say, dApps and other things on top of that. And so you kind of have that best of both worlds, so where you don't have that there's the Thunderdome of people everyone's trying to get their stuff into the protocol, which, by the way, was a Cornell professor, Emin Gunsier, remember him? I remember an interesting piece on it from him saying on how second generation open source developers can screw up a project, because the first generation ones have the vision. They come out there, they make the thing that everyone cares about. And then the second generation ones, first off, they're not paid, so they don't, it's not a job. And they're trying to, either for like credit, like resume reasons, or just for make ego reasons, trying to get their change into the code. Oh, I'm the one that put this big code that then changed everything. Like SegWit, for example, you put something like that in there. And so we don't have those problems.
Yeah, Craig Wright, he wanted more of he doesn't have a problem with centralization, and he wanted more of a permissioned system. So yeah, he's got a lot of issues. So Pasta, what is there any updates you can give us on 13.0?
Yeah, when Evo? When Evo? When Lambo? When Moon?
Well, I can definitely say that development on 0.14 has begun.
I know, I've been sniffing around in there.
Codablock is doing a lot of stuff right now in regards to version 0.14. I'm doing a lot of backports from Bitcoin that hopefully will come in 0.14. Core dev as a whole is definitely working on 0.14 quite a bit. Take that as you may on how that affects, on what that means for version 0.13.
Yeah, so to add to that, is anyone doing, how much work do you see being done on 1.0? Like right now? Or do you, or is that something you're like privy to at all? Or just got your head into the backports and stuff?
Yeah, I really haven't been focused on anything kind of that far out at this point. I'm just working on what I'm working on right now, trying to get that finished up.
An impressive array of stuff coming out, and
Zero's, it's kind of disappointing how long 0.13 has taken to get out. But when you look at the release notes, when you look at what has changed, when you look at the diff between version 13 and 12.3.4, it is, or 12.3.3, it is amazing. It is a major change. It's probably the biggest code push that we've ever made. It's probably too big. We don't really want to have changes this big, but there's just so much amazing stuff, and a lot of it kind of is all relevant to each other. Everything from auto instant send, which is going to be absolutely amazing, to a lot of private send improvements, from speed improvements to privacy improvements for private send, to the governance improvements that I've made in regards to how long it's going to take and different kind of UI stuff on that side. There's to a lot of like backend stuff with the masternode system, the deterministic masternode list. It's amazing. It's disappointing that it's taken this long to get it out, but it is an absolutely critical change. And all of this is stuff that wasn't even imagined when evolution was initially conceived.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think people don't appreciate is they think that in late 2015, Evan started typing out the code for evolution and just like, it's so late, it's so late, rather than, well, what that even means has vastly morphed over the years.
Yeah, are people going to have to move, or masternode owners going to have to move their collateral to a new address? And also, are all the votes in the governance system going to be reset with this update?
So the votes will be reset on the activation of Spork 15. The activation on Spork 15 will likely be after the January Superblock. This isn't really... I'm not terribly informed on all of this. That is obviously what I do know. I don't think you have to move your masternode collateral anymore.
Can I
obviously
interject, because
in
the Discord, Dash Nation Discord, for those that are unfamiliar and not part of it, there is a masternode only channel, and recently there was a link that was shared, which was the Dash 0.013 upgrade procedure for masternodes, and I will now share that link in the live chat. So those that are watching that are fortunate enough to be masternode owners, there is some information and there's some guidelines on there. This link was only just shared yesterday. I haven't had time to review it, but there's
pretty complex.
Yeah, there's instructions, breakdown, screenshots. So it's not something that could be summarized in 20 seconds or so. So definitely take the time to check that out. I'm going to share that link right now. But Pastor, one thing that me and Brian are both passionate about, but also critical of as well, because we want Dash to be as good as it can be. And probably once or twice a month, me and Brian have a little moan with each other, because you're a privacy advocate and you're very well versed in private send. And I'm very grateful for the service. It's why I first got involved in Darkcoin, because of dark send, right? However, I still find the process of dark send mixing slow, laborious, and I don't think it's that intuitive, but there are private send improvements coming. So can you just explain what improvements those improvements are?
Okay, so one of the improvements is a potential upwards of 4 times speed improvement. So that is obviously really great on the speed side. And that enabled us to change the minimum number of rounds from 2 to 4. I mean, not the minimum, the default number of rounds from 2 to 4, as well as the maximum number of rounds from 8 all the way up to 16. And so that's where the like raw privacy improvement comes in, is especially from those round changes, as well as different low-level changes that really improve the privacy. From like I said, from the speed perspective, Eugen made a major refactor and change of the basic private send system, which allows basically for private send to run kind of simultaneously 4 different times. So you can be talking with 4 different masternodes doing 4 different mixes all at the same time. So assuming there's enough liquidity on the network, that will have immense speed improvements, and I believe there is enough liquidity on the network from the numbers I've seen. So yeah, speed gonna be great. Probably a base of 4 times improvement, potentially more. Privacy is going to be great, bumped up from default rounds from 2 to 4, and bumped up maximum from 8 all the way up to 16.
And this is all 13.0, correct?
Yep, that's also 13.0.
And what about the extra denomination, and how does that help security even more?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been really annoyed with Private Send about since I kind of got into it is the fees. You know, if I'm buying something off Bitrefill and I use Private Send, you know, I have to deal with their amount, and depending on how much how much I need to pay, the fee can be as much as like $1 sometimes, you know. With this new denomination coming in, the fee is going to, the lowest denomination is going to be 10 times smaller, and that means the highest fee that you'll ever pay under normal conditions is going to be 10 times lower. So that's an amazing improvement kind of from my perspective of using Private Send, is that new denomination makes the fees so much lower. And that denomination, I believe at like current price range is like ish 1 cent. So that means your fees on Private Send is going to be less than 1 cent almost always.
Am I right in understanding that the 5th denomination that's added as well is going to make it super extra difficult to try and break Private Send as well? Because if you add that extra on, it's more mixing, right? So,
not necessarily. So the more inputs that you have in a Private Send transaction, the less secure, the less private it ends up being. Not that it's easily traceable, but it's theoretically more possible to trace with a guaranteed result. Whereas if you're mixing like one input in, or if you end up spending only one input, it is almost impossible to tell that is the result. And that's one of the problems that a lot of people kind of have with Private Send when they spend it, is they use an absolute ton of inputs. And I mean, obviously for most use cases, it's fine. Nobody's going to really be able to track through it, but it's just, in theory, the more inputs you use, the more possible it becomes to track through Private Send. And that uses some like clustering analysis and stuff like that is quite difficult, but is possible. So if you want to think about that.
Yeah, I remember that report that came out. I think it was, you know, anything under 10 inputs is best, basically. There was a clustering attack that, as long as you stay under, I think it's 8 or 10, then you should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to know is, and actually I think Joel's probably the biggest proponent for this, is that when do you think we'll see Private Send on mobile devices?
Yeah, so it should be possible, or it should be very possible very soon.
Okay, so the deterministic masternode. So when you're doing Private Send, you have to be talking with a masternode, right? The deterministic masternode list allows mobile clients, SPV clients, to be able to do that because they now can figure out who masternodes are. The problem is that Private Send is currently a very kind of intensive task where the masternode and the client are talking a lot back and forth, saying, here's my input, okay, sign it, blah, 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 blah. There's a bunch of chatter going on, kind of. And because of that, if you're on a phone, for example, and your network drops out, well, then the masternode is going to see, oh, this client's non-responsive. Okay, try again. Nope, not getting anything back. And then it's just going to say, okay, you're out of, it's going to like break up the mix, and then it's going to eat your collateral fee. So that's one of the problems with implementing it on mobile with the current Private Send implementation, is that there would potentially be that kind of higher fees. It would already be really complicated to code, that kind of thing. There is quite a bit of thought about a kind of mass refactor of the Private Send networking side, and that would hopefully allow for Private Send on mobile. There's no real kind of deadline or anything on that. I know that Electrum is kind of thinking about implementing their own Private Send thing. They had that in their proposal last time. hopefully with the introduction of the deterministic masternode list, maybe they'll decide to do it in a fully decentralized way, as opposed to the like my Dash wallet way, which is decent, but is still centralized because you're relying on my Dash wallet services.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, as far as I know today, there is no trustless private solution for mobile. I don't know. Is that where you probably get more into the guts of other coins as well as than I do? Do you kind of agree with the sentiment so far?
I don't know. I don't know about other coins. I don't really want to comment too much on that.
Yeah, I guess technically, and we know Joel's done this in the past, he's used the private send on my Dash wallet via his mobile. So technically it is possible, but to have it kind of in a device. Now, when we first learned about 0.13 on I remember we're talking about in the podcast, and we're all really excited because we learned that after this update, it should be possible for third-party wallets to easily integrate private send functionality if they want. Is that still the case?
I'm not terribly sure what you're talking about, Mark, to be honest.
Okay.
So it's one of the dips, yeah.
Yeah, so like I forget what guess we had, but like literally when 0.13, the first details that came out, we got really excited because it meant that the private send could easily be integrated. Like we were talking about Edge Wallet at the time, but I think we all realize where Edge Wallet supports so many coins to especially add private send for Dash and stuff is going to have so much extra. The issue is probably quite unlikely, but other third-party wallets, if they were open to it, could easily now add that. That was my understanding. I don't know if it's changed.
So SPV wallets, yeah. So
yeah, so that's referring again to the deterministic masternode list, because they can now, they can now figure out who's a masternode and do private send because of that. It's still a very intensive process. It's still a very kind of it'd probably be difficult to integrate, but it is possible. Yeah.
So what are the big integrations for 14.0? I know the chain locks. What else?
LMQs, right?
Chain locks. Sorry. 0.14 is primarily focused around LLMQs. Really, if you want to talk about that, you should be talking with Codeblock. But yeah, LLMQs are an absolutely amazing integration. They will allow for so many things going forward into the future. Primarily, I remember kind of learning about chain locks beforehand and having to kind of talk about LLMQs and how they were good because people were constantly questioning, well, what's the purpose? And I had to kind of talk about it without giving details about chain locks because that wasn't released yet. But yeah, chain locks will be a absolutely amazing improvement. I'm not positive that's coming out with 0.14. I believe it should be, but I don't want to guarantee that or like confirm that at all.
I believe this is a sticking point though for the community because we keep hearing about long-living masternode quorums, and there was a good for those that are watching, and this is the first time you're hearing about it. If you go to blog.dash.org, there is an actual article from Codeblock from a few months back where he breaks it down, but it is quite technical. So what we know and what we hear from Core is that via the long-living masternode quorums, this is going to enable so much extra functionality down the line that we're not aware of it yet. But I still don't think the community at large fully understands the concept of this. They get the deterministic masternode list, but when it comes to the long-living masternode quorums, it's a bit of a mystery. Now, I know Codeblock in the past has mentioned that he was working on a couple blog posts that after the initial technical document was going to break down why this is so cool and all the awesome things it's going to help enable. But I think in December, because of the whole hash war situation and the 51% tax, because it was a very topical thing, the chain locks kind of took center stage. So I believe that the blog posts on on the main Dash blog should still be coming out, which should be more exciting. And I think the community can then really get a hold of it and then really begin to understand what this unlocks and enables Dash to do.
So I don't really want to take Codablock's thunder when he writes those blog posts, but one of the biggest things to me is LLMQs enable chain locks. Once you have chain locks, what you can do with instant send is amazing, because at that point, there's no need to wait for 6 confirmations to be able to send an instant send. So previously in current versions, if you want to instant send a transaction, the inputs to that transactions have to all have 6 confirmations on them, or you can't instant send it. And that's a protection against there being orphan blocks and stuff like that. But now that chain locks fix orphan blocks and stuff like that, as long as your input was either locked via instant send already, basically, like in the prior transaction, or it was included in a chain lock block, then you can instant send it. There's no need to wait between that. So I could instant send to Joel right now, and then Joel could instant send right back to me. I know that was one of you guys' sticking points when you were at like conferences and stuff, is the wallet would end up showing you, no funds available, because you had to wait for those 6 confirmations for instant send. But once chain locks is implemented, there's absolutely no reason for that limitation to be there. At most, it would be 1 block, but assuming that block assuming there's a chain lock somewhere in its like prior history, it should be completely fine to just instant send to Joel, and then he can instant send it to whoever, and everything can be an instant send, for example. And once you then combine that with auto instant send, that basically means that every transaction on the Dash network is going to be instant send locked. LLMQs also enables kind of a general refactoring of instant send to use LLMQs. Because right now, instant send still requires a fair bit of bandwidth. It's reduced a lot from prior versions of instant send, and that's why auto instant send was able to become a thing in 0.13. But once you make it even better with LLMQ-based instant send, I see no reason why everything on the Dash network won't be able to be instant send and automatically confirmed. So that is something I'm really looking forward to in regards to LLMQs.
Excellent. Hey, we're about an hour in. We should probably start wrapping it up.
Yeah, I just got an update from our good old buddy Macrochip, who confirmed about the bug crowd that the amount is actually 10 grand as the highest bounty. So that's pretty cool.
So if you're a developer out there, and even if you're studying and you've got a bit of time in your hands, and you've got really nothing to lose, but a lot to gain by looking at the code and trying to find something, you'd not only be helping out us as a community, but you earn a bit of I don't want to say paper, but earn a bit of Dash as well. Don't want that dinosaur paper money.
Absolutely not.
But well, Pastor, thank you for coming on. I guess I should really, well, there's not enough room to put it in the title. So co-founder of Dash Boost, Dash Core Group developer, but you're also a moderator of the Dash Talk Discord as well. I should have said that, right?
Yeah, and living proof of the success and awesomeness of the after party.
Absolutely. Which is probably a good point to sign out. But just before...
Yes, last question for you, which is a stupid, generic kind of job interview question. What are you most excited for in Dash's future? What's the one thing that just makes you think like, I just can't wait that this thing, or not specifically development, but as in use thereof. So if it automatic instant send, be like, I just can't wait to go instant send back and forth 12 times with like a friend or something. Or if it's like, private send, I just can't wait to go buy all the Monero while keeping my traces covered, or whatever it is. What are you most excited about?
Really, the 0.13 is one of the biggest changes we've seen. I'm really excited to see that pushed onto mainnet. It's such a great, there's so much there. It's just everything from private send to auto instant send. 0.13 has so much, and I'm really, really excited to see that push to mainnet and really make Dash an even better coin than it is today.
Passion. I love it. That's what we want to hear. I was expecting to say something about dApps, but I guess until we see
we'll have
evolution,
Andy on, he'll say that.
Yeah, we'll save that for another day. Well, Pastor, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. And I hope it's been very informative for those of you watching, and you've learned a thing or two. And Joel, if you'd like to take us out, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure like, share, subscribe, and even comment, as long as you have something smart to say. Well, no, anyone can comment, whatever. When Marcos puts this post out on dashnews.org tomorrow, there's going to be all those links to iTunes, Stitcher, etc., all the audio only formats. So if you're one of those working out or driving the car podcast types, there you go. It's perfect. And don't forget, we got the after party where we this spaghetti guy lurks for usually most times. So make sure to make that. And the way you get there, you got to join the Dash Talk Discord, the best Discord in the entire world. I mean, whatever. But you get there by going to staydashy.com, and then you presumably stay dashy after typing that in. And while you're staying dashy, when you're in there, you type in something along the lines of, "Hi, where's the after party at?" And then someone will find you and will let you in. And remember, they have to friend you to let you in. A lot of people say, "Where's the after party?" And then they just kind of like, they never answer again and they get excluded. So remember that.
Excellent. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode 85 of the Dash News. Once again, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us get the message out, and we appreciate you. And also, don't forget to hit the notification bell as well to be alerted about future podcasts. We do this every Friday. We go live at 3 p.m. EST, 8 p.m. UTC, if you're on my side of the pond. And it's Friday night, people. It's Friday night for me, which means the weekend is upon us. So have a fantastic weekend wherever you are in the world. But most importantly, stay positive, stay humble, and stay dashy. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Peace, guys.
Staydashy.com.